Hello and good evening, jolly tea drinkers. Welcome back to Bedtime Tea, one more steep before sleep. Grab your teacup, get cozy, and enjoy this relaxing bedtime story that will help you feel calm and ready to drift off into a nice, peaceful sleep. Ready to begin? Tonight's story is The Case of the Café Chaos. The day began with a loud crash at the tea cafe in Wellington, where Rubio shattered yet another teacup by dropping it on the floor. This was the fifth one this week, and it was only Tuesday. Rubio looked over sheepishly and said, "Sorry, Miss T." Miss T put on her best smile and said with gritted teeth, "Please be sure to pick up all of the glass this time, Rubio. Yesterday a customer nearly slipped and fell on a piece of glass near their table." "Yes, Miss T," Rubio replied. "I'm just gonna go grab the mop," he replied nervously and walked back to the kitchen. "I'm sorry, sir," Miss T said to the customer, whose drink was now covering the floor. "We will have a new cup for you shortly." Alina Messina, affectionately known as Miss T, the owner of the tea cafe, was dealing with some strong, conflicting thoughts about her newest employee, Rubio. Rubio Frederick had only worked at the tea cafe for 3 weeks, and even though he was a pleasant and respectful young man, his skills as a server had made quite an unpleasant impression on Miss T. Between the broken dishes and the messed up orders, Miss T had been finding it quite difficult to hold her peace as she continued to give Rubio chance after chance. "Everything all right?" asked Sean Hansen, also known as Mr. Coffee, startling Miss T from her thoughts. "Oh, Mr. Coffee, I didn't even hear you come in. I'm sorry. Can I get you anything?" said Miss T, snapping back into her default customer service mode. "I'm having a bit of a sluggish morning. Do you have something that will help wake me up?" he asked. "Oh, I've actually been experimenting with a new strawberry matcha blend. Want to be part of my focus group?" she playfully asked as she walked to the cafe counter. "Sign me up," replied Mr. Coffee as he followed her. "I see Rubio is doing more special cleanup this morning," he joked as he watched Rubio clean the floor. "Not funny," she replied while pouring tea into a cup and giving it to him. Lowering her voice, she said, "I don't know how much more of this I can take. He doesn't seem to be improving, and my teacup inventory is dwindling daily." "I think I need to let him go," Miss T replied regretfully. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how serious this situation was. So you're going to fire him?" asked Mr. Coffee while drinking his tea. "I think I have to," replied Miss T as she watched Rubio take the broken glass to the kitchen. "I won't be able to stay in business if he breaks all the dishes." "Well, is there anything I can do to help?" offered Mr. Coffee. "Not unless you secretly train cafe workers in your spare time," she joked. Laughed Mr. Coffee. "That's not one of my particular set of skills, but I would do it for you if you needed me," he replied. "No, I think I'm just going to cut my losses for now," said Miss T. "He's a nice young man, but this just doesn't seem to be his niche." "Oh, well. Ooh, I'm sorry. I have to run to a meeting, but I will check in with you later to see how things went," said Mr. Coffee. He pointed to his now empty teacup. "That was delicious, by the way." "Thanks," said Miss T, smiling brightly. "Have a great day, and I hope everything goes well with your meeting," she encouraged. "Well, I definitely started my morning right. I hope you have a great day as well, and I will talk to you later," stumbled Mr. Coffee. Just then, the sound of another broken dish was heard. Miss T looked to the ceiling with exhaustion and then looked back at Mr. Coffee. Shaking their heads in unison, they both uttered, "Rubio." "You know what?" said Miss T, slamming her hand down on the counter. "I'm going to take care of this right now," she said, as she swiftly turned and walked into the kitchen. "Sorry, Miss T, it won't happen again, I promise," said Rubio as he walked into the kitchen. "You got that right," quipped Mr. Coffee as he exited the cafe. Later that evening, near closing time, Mr. Coffee returned to the cafe, only to discover a downtrodden Miss T at the counter. "Whoa, that is not the lovely, joyful face that I'm used to seeing. What's wrong?" Mr. Coffee asked as he walked over to her. "Well, I did it. I fired Rubio," said Miss T dejectedly. Congratulations? Isn't that what you wanted?" Mr. Coffee asked. "Yes, but I feel horrible about it," said Miss T as she walked over to wipe down one of the tables. Following after her, Mr. Coffee stated, "Of course you do. It's because you're so nice. You go out of your way to help people, even when it's detrimental to you. I'm sure that you made the best decision possible, given the current situation. Try not to beat yourself up about it," soothed Mr. Coffee. "Thanks," replied Miss T. "But you should have seen Rubio. He got angry and even said, 'You'll regret this.' And then he stormed out," she recounted sadly. "Wait, he actually said, 'You'll regret this'?" asked Mr. Coffee. "Yes, I've never seen him so upset before. He's always been so pleasant," said Miss T as she wiped the table and walked back to the counter. That is definitely something to be bothered about," replied Mr. Coffee, deep in thought, as he too walked to the counter. "Yeah, I actually felt a bit nervous for a moment there," said Miss T. "Did you feel like he was threatening you?" asked Mr. Coffee, more concerned. "I kind of did, yes. But you know what? I was probably just overreacting because of all of the tension in the room," said Miss T as she waved her hand dismissively. "But I still feel bad about having to fire him," she said sadly. Mr. Coffee, in an effort to cheer her up, said, "Well, look on the bright side. I bet you haven't had a broken teacup since he walked out that front door." "More like stormed out the front door," Miss T jokingly corrected him. Mr. Coffee chuckled. Suddenly, there was a loud bang by the window. Miss T jumped. "Whoa!" she said. "What was that?" asked Mr. Coffee while he stood up and looked around. He turned back to face Miss T and asked her, "Are you all right?" "Yes," she said while on the move. "It looks like something hit my front window. There's some kind of liquid on it," she said as she walked toward the window. Mr. Coffee placed his hand on her arm to stop her. "Wait, let me check it out." Using careful and deliberate steps, he stalked to the front window. He inspected the window, then opened the front door and walked outside, looking around. Miss T walked slowly to the front door with apprehension. "Sean?" she said with concern. Mr. Coffee ran his fingers over the window, inspected and smelled them. He looked at her with a confused expression. "What is it?" she asked. "Well, it smells like coffee," he replied as he looked down at the ground around him. "Coffee? Coffee?" Miss T repeated in disbelief. Mr. Coffee picked up a paper cup that was on the ground and inspected it. "I think someone threw this cup of coffee at your window and then ran away," he said, looking around again. "What? Why would someone do that?" asked Miss T. "I have no idea, but it appears that you are the victim of a hit and run, coffee style," joked Mr. Coffee. Said Miss T, "Look at you. You are 2 seconds away from putting on some sunglasses and singing the theme song from CSI Miami, aren't you?" she joked. "Well, you know," he said as he pulled a pair of sunglasses out of his pocket and put them on, "sometimes sip happens." Miss T burst into uncontrollable laughter. Mr. Coffee watched her laugh and he smiled. As she got herself under control, he said, "You know, this does sound like a mystery that needs to be solved." Wiping a tear from her eye, she said, yes, the case of the coffee window washer." She again dissolved into a fit of giggles. "Or the case of the coffee waster." "Oh no, that was horrible. Scratch that. I can do better," he said playfully. She laughed and he gently led her back inside the cafe. "All right," Mr. Coffee said as he removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. "I'm going to need some paper towels and Windex, please." Miss T stopped and faced him. "Are you going to clean my window?" "No, I'm going to shine your shoes and clean your window," he said shyly. "Oh, you don't have to do that, Sean." "I want to," he said and paused. "I mean, it's no big deal, just a few spritzes and wipes and it's done." "Mr. Coffee cleans the coffee," Miss T remarked with a smile. He returned the smile for a moment and then shook his head and said, "But the question still remains, who would throw coffee at your window?" Miss T's smile faltered. "Honestly, part of me wonders if it was Rubio. I hate to think it, but he was pretty angry when he left." Mr. Coffee nodded his head in thought. "Well, with us on the case, the culprit will be discovered and," he said as he removed his sunglasses, "serenity will be restored." Miss T dissolved into laughter again. "You are way too good at those tea puns." "Yeah!" joked Mr. Coffee. "Okay, you get back to closing up. I'll go clean your window." He lifted his hand, she gave him a high five, and the two friends got to work. Days went by and strange occurrences continued to happen. Someone spotted a mouse in the cafe that sent the customers and Miss T into a tizzy. It turned out to be a fake, and on multiple days the thermostat seemed to go haywire and was blowing hot air in 80-degree weather. And today, a group of loud and disruptive youth came into the cafe and were giving the workers a hard time. Mr. Coffee entered the shop during a moment of chaos. He looked around in confusion. Paulina, one of the workers, greeted him, saying, "Oh, hey, Mr. Coffee, if you just give me a few minutes, I will help you find a clean table." "Oh, take your time, Paulina. It seems to be a madhouse in here today. Where's Miss T?" he asked. "She's in the kitchen," said Paulina. Mr. Coffee said, "Would it be all right if I..." And before he could even complete his sentence, Paulina replied, Yes, I'm sure it's fine. I just have to go see to these customers," she said, rushing off. Mr. Coffee looked around once more and then headed to the kitchen. He walked in just as the blender that Miss T was using went haywire and splashed the mixture right into her face. Frustrated, she said, Ugh, I give up. She then noticed Mr. Coffee in the kitchen. I give up, Sean. If Rubio is trying to get me back for firing him, he won. You know what? As a matter of fact, she said. She removed her apron and threw it on the counter. She grabbed a paper towel and quickly wiped her face and marched towards the door. Wait, where are you going? Asked Mr. Coffee as he followed her. I'm going to put an end to this madness now. Paulina, hold the line until I get back, she yelled as she walked out the front door of the cafe. Paulina, who was being overrun by the youth, looked at the front door with confusion and panic. Mr. Coffee followed Miss T to the door, but then at the last minute made a beeline and walked over to where Paulina was standing at a table filled with troublemaking kids and said menacingly, "Whatever you are doing, stop now. And if I see any of you kids here when I get back, we're gonna have a problem." He then turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving the youth in shock and silence. Paulina then stated, "Yeah, what he said," and walked over to her next customer. Outside, Mr. Coffee tried to catch up with Miss T, who was already halfway down the street. She walked so fast that he had to jog to catch up with her. Miss T, he called out to her, but she didn't stop or slow down. With his long strides, he was able to catch her. He stood in front of her, blocking her way, saying, "Alina, where are you going?" "To find Rubio," Miss T replied as she sidestepped Mr. Coffee and continued on her march. Mr. Coffee had no choice but to fall in line with her. "But where?" he asked. "The library," she said. "Paulina said that she was talking to Maddie, who overheard her mother say that Rubio works at the library now." "Wow," commented Mr. Coffee. "The small town grapevine is way better than social media," he quipped. "But what are you planning to do?" he asked, just as they arrived at the library. Mr. Coffee followed Miss T as she marched into the library. "Miss T, I really think you should stop and think this through. We don't even have proof that he was behind all of these strange occurrences." "Shh," said the librarian behind the desk as she pointed to a sign that said, "Quiet, please." "Sorry," whispered Mr. Coffee to the librarian as he followed Miss T further into the library. Before long, they spotted Rubio, and Miss T started walking in his direction. Mr. Coffee quickly pulled her behind one of the shelves before Rubio saw them. "Alina, wait. Think," Mr. Coffee whispered. "Do you really want to cause trouble at Rubio's new place of employment without proof that he's guilty?" he asked. "No, you're right," said Miss T. "I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. It's just been such a crazy week." Suddenly, the librarian appeared and said, "Shh." "Sorry," replied Miss T. "Where did she even come from?" she asked, turning back to face Mr. Coffee. "I don't know, but let's get out of here," whispered Mr. Coffee as he turned to leave. "You can leave," said Miss T, "but I'm going to stay and observe Rubio for a little while," she whispered as she peeked around the corner at Rubio. "You never give up, do you?" said Mr. Coffee in awe. Miss T turned around, looked at him and said, "No," then turned back to watch Rubio. Mr. Coffee chuckled and whispered, "Okay then, I'm not leaving either." "Really?" Miss T whispered hopefully. "Yes," said Mr. Coffee. "We're a detective team, remember?" Miss T smiled at him, "Like CSI Miami." Mr. Coffee smiled back and responded, "Like TSI Wellington." "Yeah!" giggled Miss T. "Shh," said the librarian, who was suddenly standing next to them, and then walked away. Sorry, said Miss T, and she whispered to Mr. Coffee, how does she keep appearing like that? Mr. Coffee chuckled again. Okay. What's our cover story? Cover story? Miss T giggled. do we need one? The point is to not be seen. Yes, but if we do get caught, whispered Mr. Coffee, we should have a cover story about why we were here. Like, we really needed this book, he said, as he randomly grabbed a book from the shelf. Miss T looked at the book and said, that's a dictionary. Mr. Coffee looked back at the book. Oh, well, okay, so we came to the library because we needed a dictionary. But Miss T interrupted, and why did we need the dictionary, Detective Coffee? Because we were having a debate. A debate? About what? A debate about how to spell the word. He paused and flipped through the dictionary. Ah, superfluous. Superfluous, repeated Miss T. Mr. Coffee continued reading. It means being beyond what is required or sufficient. So it basically means unnecessary, kind of like this cover story, Miss T joked. Mr. Coffee pretended to be hurt and said, you know, I'm feeling really unsupported by my partner right now. Miss T laughed. The librarian popped up and sharply said, shh, making Miss T jump again. Miss T said, my goodness, you could give someone a heart attack. I'm sorry. Don't worry, we're leaving now. Come on, Detective. Mr. T? Mr. Coffee? Rubio asked as he walked over to them. Uh-oh. Miss T and Mr. Coffee froze for a moment as they realized they were caught. Miss T smiled nervously and said, hey, Rubio. Hey, what are you guys doing here? Asked Rubio pleasantly. Mr. Coffee spoke next. Funny you should ask, Rubio. Miss T and I were literally just having a debate, he said, locking eyes with her in amusement. Yes, we actually were, Miss T then chuckled nervously. So, Rubio, you work here now? How have you been? Oh, I'm great, Rubio replied. This job is amazing. I love books, and the best part is, if I drop one on the carpet, they don't break, he said, laughing. Laughing, Miss T responded, oh, yes, that is a very good thing. You know, Miss T, Rubio sobered, I'm really sorry about the way I left that day. I shouldn't have been so rude to you and said those awful things. I'm really sorry. Thank you, Rubio. I appreciate and accept your apology, replied Miss T. I really enjoyed my time working with you, Rubio continued, and I definitely don't want you to think badly about me. I want to be able to stop by and get a cup of tea from the best cafe in town, he said with a shy smile. Feel free to stop by any time, Rubio, Miss T smiled peacefully. Do you want to ask him about the other stuff? Mr. Coffee whispered to her. No, I do not, she whispered back. What other stuff? Whispered Rubio. Miss T and Mr. Coffee looked at him with surprise. I have really good hearing, Rubio said with a chuckle. Miss T hesitated. Mr. Coffee chimed in. There have been a series of unfortunate events at the tea cafe lately. Unfortunate events? Repeated Rubio. Mr. Coffee continued. Yes, fake rodent scares, coffee thrown at the front window, rude and rowdy kids, thermostat malfunctions. Whoa, said Rubio. That's insane. Wait, you thought I did those things? He asked offendedly. Well, you were quite angry when you left, Miss T trailed off uncomfortably. Oh no, Miss T, I would never do that to you. Yes, I was angry, but no, that's not me. You got to believe me, Miss T. You've got to, Rubio insisted. I believe you, Rubio, said Miss T. Shh, said the librarian, who popped up from around the corner. Oh, I wish you would stop doing that, whispered Miss T. Listen, I gotta get back to work. It was good to see you guys, said Rubio. Mr. Coffee reached out to shake Rubio's hand. Thanks for talking to us. No hard feelings, right? Not at all, Mr. Coffee. I hope everything works out. Miss T, I miss your strawberry green cold brew. I plan to stop by tomorrow. Oh, good. See you again, Miss T said cheerfully and locked eyes with the librarian. I know. Shh, she said exhaustedly. The librarian looked at her sternly and shook her head. Mr. Coffee whispered to the librarian, Don't worry, we are leaving now. Miss T, I had no idea that you were so noisy, he joked as he led Miss T out of the library. The next day began quietly. Miss T had just opened the shop when the front door chimed. Rubio entered the cafe with a young boy. Miss T smiled at them and noted that the kid looked familiar. Good morning, Miss T, greeted Rubio. Good morning, Rubio, Miss T said with a smile. And who do we have here? She nodded towards the youth. Well, don't be rude. Say good morning, Rubio instructed the youth. Good morning, he mumbled to Miss T, looking at the ground. Not a morning person, are you? Replied Miss T lightheartedly. Miss T, said Rubio, this is my little brother, Jake. Oh, hello, Jake, said Miss T. Jake has something to tell you, said Rubio. Go ahead, Jake, he said sternly. Jake mumbled. We can't understand your words, Jake. Speak clearly, admonished Rubio. It was me, said Jake. What was you? Asked Miss T. I was the one who pulled all those pranks on you, said Jake. What? It was you? Miss T questioned, just as the door to the tea cafe opened and Mr. Coffee arrived. Sensing tension in the air, Mr. Coffee walked straight over to the trio to investigate. Good morning. Everything all right here? He asked as he looked at Miss T and then at the boys. This is Rubio's brother, Jake. Apparently, he's the one who's been causing all of the chaos at the cafe, said Miss T as she crossed her arms. Is that so? Asked Mr. Coffee, who also crossed his arms and watched Jake intensely. The youngster became nervous when he saw Mr. Coffee and took a couple of steps back behind his brother. Oh no, don't try to hide behind me. Tell them what you did, Rubio scolded. Jake looked at Mr. Coffee, swallowed, and responded shyly. I'm the one who placed the fake rubber mouse in the corner. And, said Rubio, and I told my friends to come here and be loud and rude and cause trouble, said Jake. And, said Rubio impatiently, and I threw the coffee at your front window and messed with your thermostat, Jake admitted. Wow, you certainly have been busy, said Miss T in shock. Mr. Coffee questioned, Why'd you do it, kid? Rubio lightly pushed Jake's shoulder. Speak up, he said. I was trying to get you back for firing my brother. He came home so upset that day, and I didn't like it. I thought you should feel as bad as he did. Then Rubio added, I didn't know about any of this, Miss T. I swear, I just found out about it last night and made Jake come here first thing this morning to tell you. I believe you, Rubio, said Miss T softly. I have yet to hear an apology, said Mr. Coffee sternly, giving Jake a so sorry, sir." "Not to me. Apologize to Miss T," said Mr. Coffee. Oh, I'm really sorry, Miss T. I shouldn't have done those things, and it won't happen again." Miss T nodded. "I accept your apology, Jake. Look, we gotta get going. Jake is going to be doing some weekend work with me at the library so that he learns the value of good, hard work. Thank you for hearing us out, Miss T. We'll see you again soon." He lightly pushed Jake, who said, "Thank you, Miss T." "Thank you for apologizing, Jake. Hopefully we'll see you again soon," said Miss T. After Rubio and Jake left the cafe, Miss T turned to face Mr. Coffee and said with a smile, "Well, mystery solved." "Yes," said Mr. Coffee as he put on his sunglasses. "And it's shaping up to be a beautiful day." How in the world does a coffee lover know so many tea puns? I find that to be really... She trailed off, looking at him intently. Mr. Coffee offered words to fill in the blank. "Funny? Charming? Attractive?" he asked playfully. Miss T smiled at him and said, "Superfluous." And thus ends the case of the Cafe Chaos. The end. I do hope that you enjoyed this story. Join us again next time for another tale from our Bedtime Tea collection. Sleep well, jolly tea drinkers, and may your cups overflow with joy and peace.